in the wall. Today at the SEG Women's Network, we have got a special guest, Louisa, and she's going to provide a talk on the spectral decomposition methods, comparison and application in fluvial environments. I will start with a brief introduction of Louisa, and then she will start the presentation, and then there is a Q&A session at the end. Usually you can type on the chat, and then between Paul and myself we can read, and then she will answer. I guess that's the plan for today. It's being recorded, so will be available in our website. With no further ado, I will start introducing our speaker today. So Louisa Gicquel has a master's degree in geoscience from the French National School of Geology in Nancy, France. She started as a geoscientist at ELIS in the Brazilian office based in Rio de Janeiro, and recently joined the European team. So she's based in France now. And she has been providing support for the South American petroleum companies, and this allows her to interact with geoscientists all over the world. And she says it's a fantastic experience and a source of learning, which is a very nice way to finish your bio. With that, you can start anytime.
Okay, perfect.
Up to you.
I start sharing my screen. Are you Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Adriana, for this introduction, and thank you, the SEG Women Network, for this nice opportunity to share work that have been performed with Gaston Giovinet and Yolanda Ruiz from the YPF company. So I will start with this subject, which is spectral decomposition methods comparison and its directly application in one of the basins of Argentina. A little comment because I find it funny. We are not the 30th of February, but the 1st of March. So let's start this month a nice way, I hope, with this presentation. So I will show you the discussion flow. So I will start indicate the location and the geological settings. Then I will present the signal-driven relative geological time modeling that allows to have what we call stratal slicing in a very high density, and the spectral decomposition methods that can be used to highlight events. And finally, I will describe some results we obtained blending in a RGB viewer the spectral decomposition. So starting with the first part, I will present the geological context and show the seismic data we used. I see that Luis is on the meeting, so he well knows this part of Argentina. So the San Jorge Gulf Basin is located in the south of Argentina. The production started 125 years ago, and it is well known as the first hydrocarbon producer basin in Argentina. So the basin is extended east-west in this direction, and the study area you can see in the red box corresponds to the western flank of the basin. So the study area located in the trusted belt, as you can see on the section, is structurally complex with trusted faults, anticlinal faults. And if we look now at the stratigraphic column, the study focused on the lower Cretaceous in the Chubut group. So from the D129 formation, which is a principal source rock, to the lower member of the Barrow Barrial formation. These are deposits, those deposits are continental, and they are well known as a reservoir, which correspond to fluvial channel, mostly meander. And they are well known in the basin as a good reservoir. The data we've been using for the first block is a PSTM data, so time data, and more or less 822 square kilometers and a vertical extension of 3,550 milliseconds. We've extended the workflow to another seismic, which is a block B. You can see on the map, it is very close to the block A, and there is kind of overlapping. So it has been decided to extend to the north. It is also a PSTM data. And on the inline, the second one, you can see the vertical area we focused on, which correspond to the upper member of the D129 formation, to the lower member of the Barrow Boreal formation. And we try to focus only on this part. Now I will start with the workflow for you to understand how it was possible to detect very subtle channel by providing subsample stratal slicing. So the first step, I will say, it's divided in two steps. So we call that the RGT modeling. And RGT means relative geological time model. And it aims at first converting all the seismic reflectors into polarity consistent horizon. And all those polarity consistent horizons are stratigraphically sorted. And then the interpolation, 3D interpolation of all of them correspond to what we call the relative geological time model, which is this colored information, and that is a continuous framework. So just a little detail to better understand what is the model grid, which is a discrete stratigraphic framework. So based on each seismic trace, you can see on the picture A, nodes are created on each polarity. It could be peak through, zero crossing, or inflection point. On the picture B, you can see that spatial resolution can be applied based on the bin size of your seismic. And those nodes correspond to elementary patch, so very little horizon that are connected between each other, as you can see on the D picture, following a low-cost minimization function, so which is based on the correlation between the trace and also the distance. And thanks to that, it's possible to have all your seismic reflectors converted into horizon, and its interpolation in 3D provide us what we call the relative geological time model. So it respects all the seismic reflectors. We can edit when it is not connected the way we want, and that is needed in structurally complex zone. And you are seeing on the left-hand side an inline for the block A, and on the right-hand side the same an inline for the block B, where we blend the RGT model and the seismic, and you can see how the model fits the seismic. So it's not something that is iso-proportional. It's very based on each little variation of your seismic reflectors. And here we come to what is the interest of today. I would say stratal slicing. So from a top and a bottom, it's possible to extract an unlimited number of surface where we will map attributes. So it can be very interesting for a first analysis, which correspond to a data reconnaissance, and then for detailed strata analysis. So I will show you how we used this information, and we look at each surface to see what can be detected and how we can highlight the objects that have been detected. So looking at the attribute we can map on it, here you are seeing an horizon from the block A, which is on the barobarreal inferior, the lower member of barobarreal. And on each slice, you are seeing exactly the same horizon, but with different attribute mapping. Here's the deepest descent gradients that will highlight fault, and in that case, the flank of the anticlines. The Z-map, which is always interesting to understand where are the low and high structural. And on the last map, we are seeing a stratigraphic attribute that is a RMS amplitude. And I don't know if you are able to see it, but there is a channel here with a north-west, southeast direction. So the idea of performing this data reconnaissance is that each level saves the location of features, geological features that can be interesting to highlight with spectral decomposition, and that can be part of your portfolio. We perform the same in the second data, and just to see, we are at the top of the formation D129, which is the source, which is well known as the source rock. And you can see the on the RMS map something that is with high amplitude contrast with the direction north, east, south, west, that can correspond to what have been interpreted maybe as a littoral or bar. So at this step, we save location, and we save all the location of the event we've detected with only the RMS amplitude. Once those locations have been saved and observed in RMS, or in the section also, when you see changes you want to see also on the map, so you cross-correlate and you try to see them in 3D. So here you are seeing on the left-hand side the stratal slice that correspond to the isochronous surface extracted from the RGT. On this second picture, the vertical section and the spectrogram that correspond to exactly this seismic trace that cross the event we want to highlight with spectral decomposition. So it corresponds to exactly this trace, and we should focus on the horizon that intersect the spectrogram at this level. The first method we can see is the short-time Fourier transform, where the precision in frequency is interesting, but you can see that the precision in time isn't that precise. When we look at the continuous wavelet transform, it's possible to use several wavelets, for example, Ricoeur or Morlet. And you can see that at the highest frequency, the frequency precision is interesting, but for the lowest frequency, the precision in time is quite loose at a certain point. And finally, for the last spectrogram, you are looking at a method we called matching pursuit. And you can see a high precision in frequency and also in time. So without looking at some result, but just by looking at the spectrogram, we can have idea of the different results we will obtain. And I will just detail the method of the matching pursuit. I imagine you already maybe used the short-time Fourier or the continuous wavelet transform. So quickly, it is along one trace and a computation can be done along one trace and trace by trace. With the matching pursuit is a little bit different. It is an iterative way that have a goal, and the goal is to decompose the seismic trace and rebuild it by the sum of the different wavelets that compose the initial trace. So how it works? The first iteration will be the following one, where, for example, here you can see this seismic trace, and the maximum of the envelope is more or less here. So we will compute this envelope, the maximum envelope, and where the envelope is the maximum, we will create the wavelets that correspond to this envelope. And then remove it from the initial trace. And for the iteration 2, we'll redo this operation. So the highest energy should be here. The wavelets in black correspond to this highest energy, and we removed it from the initial trace. And it is done several times until threshold. You can decide to highlight or not detail, but be careful because it can be noise. So that is how work the matching pursuit. And now I will continue with the result. So the latest part where we can blend the 3 frequencies we picked thanks to the signature of the different events we detected previously in the data reconnaissance step. And now going through more detail, we will try to highlight this event and try to understand the connectivity that can be observed between the different channelized events. So what are the geometry we are expecting, and can we identify them in an easy way or not an easy way? That is a very synthetic table where you can see on the left-hand side the organized sequential contact that can be observed, and on the right-hand side the disorganized non-sequential contact with non-sequential contacts. So for example, it will be easy to observe vertical stacking that are well organized. It could be more subtle to observe lateral stacking organized and disorganized because of the resolution of the seismic. And what can be also interesting is this subtle event, once they are detected and highlighted, can be easier to individualize. So taking all those information in our brain when we are looking at turbidite channel, or in this case study, fluvial channel. And one of the first results is the channel we've seen on the data reconnaissance, and I show you with the northwest and southeast direction. So here it has been blended in a RGB viewer, where you can see the spectral decomposition methods that have been applied is a short-time Fourier transform with vertical windows of 46 milliseconds, and we've blended the 3 frequencies, which are 43 Hz, 52 and 61 Hz. So in the red channel, the magnitude for the frequency 43, these 3 discrete frequencies, the green channel for the middle frequency, and the blue channel for the high frequency. So you can see how the horizon and how we can follow easily this channel that wasn't that obvious with only RMS. And also all these red points correspond to well information. You can see in the seismic section the response of this well in terms of potential, spontaneous potential and resistivity that are great. And now if I jump to the next slide, you can see how the RGB blending help to characterize the different elements of the channel. So we can understand that where we are seeing point bar, we could have lateral connectivity. And when we look at the same map on 3D, we easily understand where are the low and high structural. And you can see that the 6 wells are located in this little high between these two big anticline. Another example that have been detected correspond to the to this one. We are looking at it in a very close way. I don't know if your screen is big or not, but it can be too close, I would say. So several elements can be described, such as channelized system, several. It seems that they are all converging in what could be a possible endorheic lake. And you can see that we are in the formation, in the lower member of the formation baroboreal. So this spectral decomposition have been applied for several events, and something that can be interesting to look at is the way we are seeing it and how we can understand it. So for you to compare, we already compared the spectrogram, and if you remember, the matching pursuit has a very punctual frequency signature, I would say. And the short-time Fourier transform has lower precision in time. And now, when we look at the section, we've blend the same frequency. So the same frequency have been picked for the two methods and blended in section in RGB viewer, rain grid blue. And the same have been performed and mapped on the horizons that intersect the event. You can see here in yellow. First, we can look at the map. So when we look at the short-time Fourier transform method, we can see that it's very easy to follow the channelized event. There are many of them, and we can see at some point as I would say a phantasma of that can be another channelized event. We don't have this by looking at the matching pursuit. It is less easy, for example, to follow this channelized event, but we seems to be only focusing on this possible endorheic lake and not on events that can be above and below. And now, when we look at the section, you can see that with the matching pursuit, we have a thickness of more or less 16 milliseconds. The yellow dots is the same on each viewers, and extensions that seems to be exactly the same for the short-time Fourier transform, so spatially is the same, but vertically it is very different. And here we do not preserve this time precision. So both methods can be interesting, and thanks to the matching pursuit, we have the possibility to understand the connectivity and vertical connectivity of the events we are looking at. And I will conclude with that. So you can see that we performed a semi-automated method to have high details, So you've seen only 2 examples of spectral decomposition, but it have been performed many more for each channel we've detected. And the spectral decomposition and RGB blending helps first at characterizing the channels, understand their lateral connectivity and also vertical connectivity. And several prospects can be mapped thanks to this method and convert into what could be a geobody. And you can see that we perform the method for each geobody and we extract it physically. And it could be an idea to observe all of them and see where we have the most of the stacking, correlated them with the structure to create a possible wells. And I will conclude with that and thank first YPF for the courtesy to share this dataset, and also Elise to provide the technology PaleoScan. Adriana and Paola and all your team for the opportunity to present on the on this webinar, and thank you all of you. You are a high number. Thank you for your attention. I've been a little bit synthetic, so if you have a question, do not hesitate, and it will be a pleasure to answer.
So you have got the Q&A section here on the bar, on the menu.
Okay. No question yet.
Then show up. Yeah, put the hands up. I don't know if you want to type your question on the box. It says it is possible to extract the geobodies with the software.
Hola, Luis. Yes, it's possible to extract geobody with the software. And what I've done, because of this high stratal slicing, it was possible to see the event in different horizons. And I pick it on the spectral decomposition blended map manually to build the RGT. And it's also possible to extract them by doing a cross plot and having something more 3D than only horizon by horizon.
Okay. We got from Jose Berzi another question. How did you select the 3 frequencies to blend?
So the way we've selected the frequency to blend, when you see the event you want to highlight, for example, the channel, you select the exact position and you see the spectrogram of the trace that cross this position. So you will see this spectrogram at the level you are interested in, and where you see the frequency signatures, it is highlighted in red. Sometimes it's a little bit more subtle, so you have to play with the color bar, and you will be able to pick I always first pick the mid frequency and then the low frequency and high frequency close to this one.
Okay, get ready because there are a lot. So the next one is, thank you for this interesting presentation. I have 3 questions. So yeah, okay. First one, how did you decide the 3 tuning frequencies, which is the same that it was answered early on? How MC method will perform with lower frequencies, 18 to 30 hertz?
MC method, is it matching pursuit, MP? Okay. Matching pursuit. I think it really depends on your seismic and the event you want to highlight. I've tested it on this onshore data which was more frequency between 43, 56, and 65. And I tried them on data that are in depth, which a very lower frequency. It will not be anymore hertz, but unit by kilometers or yes, unit by kilometers, and it highlighted the same way. I didn't see difference. No, I think it worked well with a lower frequency.
Okay. And the third one is flattering horizons will show more continuous channels. And that the three that coming from Samir.
Okay. Flattening horizon will show more continuous channels. The way that the horizon are created, they are extracted directly on each reflectors. So you can flatten them, but I think because you are directly extracted isochron, the continuity is preserved. I don't know if I'm clear. Do not hesitate, Samir, if it's not clear to re-ask.
Okay, I go for the next one. It comes from Ignacio Capelli. It says, Luisa, very good presentation. Thank you so much. In your experience, what was the minimum channel thickness in meters you were able to see by a spectral decomposition? Would you expect high relative acoustic impedance in those channels, right?
What a nice question. It wasn't this project, but I've been working in other projects in the same basin where channel was only less than 4 meters and the seismic wasn't enough with enough resolution to see them, but the way that sometimes they are stacked allows us to see some trend. So what we've been able to see, it was trend, and thanks to spectral decomposition, it was possible to highlight this trend that wasn't visible with RMS, not with relative acoustic impedance. And would you expect high relative acoustic impedance in those channels? I think I'm not able to answer this question. But if you agree, I write your name and I answer you by looking at more detail about relative acoustic impedance, the way it can be computed and related to the spectral decomposition. Most of the time, just that, I use the RMS to detect events, and when you have a high amplitude contrast, so you will have a high RMS, and the magnitude of the frequency that correspond to the event will be high.
Okay. Thank you so much. And finally, did you previously apply any conditioning to the seismic?
I didn't apply nothing. We take the data as it was. It was a PSTM data with 25 meters spatially and 4 milliseconds vertically. It hasn't been denoised or spectral balance.
Okay. Thank you. David asked, did you try the Ricker way to compare it with the STFT?
I tried, and the result was very similar to the short-time Fourier transform.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to get a medal for the one answering the most questions ever. But yeah, thank you so much. If no one has got anything else to ask, we will conclude here. I guess they know your details. It's on the presentation somewhere that they can contact directly. Oh, wait, hold on. Any intents on doing any quantitative estimates of thickness?
What a very nice question. I discussed on Wednesday with a geophysicist, and it can be correlated and maybe more described thanks to the well. But what I think I would like to do is trying to see exactly in depth how it works and how we can see this spectral decomposition, and if we really are seeing variation of thickness with more or less indirect data than the time seismic data.
Okay, and the last one, nice presentation, Loisa. This is from Hector Andrade. So I just wonder if you were able to compare MP versus CWT.
Yes, Hector, I tried it, or one of my colleagues, Nicola, tried it with another data set in offshore data in turbidite channel. And what is it interesting is that when you look at the map, it's quite the same information that is mapped. But when you look at the section, there is, I think, the big difference where you will see the change in the vertical precision.
I think that's everything. And a lot of people is congratulate you for such a good presentation, and I echo that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and everyone have a good weekend. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.